How's it going, everybody? I am Kyle from SA Forge Studios, and we will be going over today the Razing of Helix deck, basically card spotlight. I am not joined by Dane today, but I will be going through essentially all the evil goblin creatures that do exist in the north part of the Great Peninsula in the Kingdom of Helix, and are the flame element creatures in the Razing of Helix set. As those who do know, we just released our Kickstarter for the first editions of the Everlast TCG. And this is kind of a resource for you to be able to kind of answer some questions, go in-depth analysis of the cards that you could potentially pull in the booster packs and whatnot that you do get. And as mentioned in previous videos, if you have missed out on the Everlast first edition Kickstarter, we will be releasing an unlimited version of this game to those who are maybe missed out on the opportunity and want to get their hands on the game. The goal right now is to get that released in August. And so just a little bit more time, August 2025. So just a little bit more time that you have to wait for that. But in the meantime, you can get excited for some of the cards that are going to be here in the Razing of Helix for the Flame Element. Just a brief note, the Flame creatures are going to be the goblins of the basically world of Everlast. One particular kingdom of goblins happened to be here in Crown Heights, which sit way deep under the mountain in the subterran world, subterran realms, and they are the goblins of Mozor Deep. And so they will, for the Everlast role-playing game, when we do release that first adventure, they are going to have some reoccurring villains and some creatures that have crept out of the depths below and are making their way into the world, causing the adventuring party some issues and some trouble. But that's going to be represented by many of the cards here. And so, as mentioned before, the Heroes of the West and Razing of Helix take place in the Kingdom of Helix, which is this northern part of the Great Peninsula of Everlast. So for a little bit of reference, so you guys kind of know that aren't familiar with the world of Everlast, as it were. But the very first card in the set is going to be Brazog, Hunter of Men. So Brazog is a support type creature, and he is one of the captains of this set. He does not have a 3 cards, so meaning you could only have one of him active on your battlefield at a time. You can have up to 3 of them, 3 of this creature specifically in your deck, but only one of your Brazog, Hunter of Men can be active on your battlefield at one time. And he has the keywords Captain, Fell, Goblin, and Mozor Deep, which is the locale that they are at. You'll see a lot of synergy between Mozor Deep and a lot of cards, like a lot of your creatures in all these cards as we go over them. But first and foremost, let's just go ahead and look at see what this primary captain does for the flame cards in the Razing of Helix. So as mentioned, he is a support type creature, meaning he has a support activate ability, which you can use during your movement phase. He has 60 hit points, and he has the trait Hatred of Man. So all of your creatures with the goblin keyword, so everyone that has goblin in their keyword section, gain 20 damage to their attack actions against all targets of your opponent's creatures, all targets of your opponent's creatures with the human or Earth Shia keywords. And so this is very strong, particularly in the Heroes of the West, as the vast majority of the cards actually do have the human keyword. And so as long as you have goblins, and as long as you have a Brazog active on your battlefield, you're doing 20 more damage against all of the creatures of your attack actions. And so that's pretty good, especially if you have a creature that hits multiple targets from primary to secondary creatures. All of those receive 20 damage, so he's pretty strong. He's one of those creatures that you want to sit behind the main lines and kind of buff your goblins as they begin to swarm onto your battlefield. But Brazog is one of the few reoccurring villains that your adventuring party will encounter during your adventures in the Great Peninsula of Everlast during the Everlast role-playing game. But yeah, he is pretty strong, very supporty, and basically he buffs from the back lines. And he does have an activate ability, so you can either choose to activate him and generate 1 flame mana, or you can use his support action activate ability, which is Goblin Reinforcements, which is shuffle up to 3 active creatures with the Goblin keyword from your battlefield back into your deck. Draw 2 cards for each creature shuffled into your deck in this way, which is very strong, especially if you want to make room for some more powerful creatures, or if you have a bunch of goblins that are about to be slain. That's a way to preserve them so you can get them back out later in the game. And so, yeah, Brazog, Hunter of Men, he's very good, a very decent captain to be able to have out. The next one is going to be actually the first kind of monstrous creature that you'll see in both sets, which is going to be the Cave Troll. And so Cave Trolls are usually solitary creatures that live in the Subterran, but goblins also have the ability to kind of enslave them underneath their kind of rule. And so in the case of this Cave Troll, he works pretty much with the goblins to be able to, as their big brute force, as goblins are many very quite numerous, but they are relatively weak in combat prowess, and so they need to hide behind giant creatures such as cave trolls. And as you can see, he is a primary creature. He is not a captain, but he does have the monster keyword, and he also has the troll keyword. He has basically you can only have one of him on your battlefield at a time, as he doesn't have the 3-card symbol here, and he does have a starting hit point total of 100, which is very high for a primary type creature. He is a monster after all, but his trait is a monstrous brute, and so as long as he's on your battlefield, that's the caveat with traits. Whenever this creature performs an attack action, reduce all damage made against this creature during the next combat round by 30. So as long as he's attacking and spending his 4 mana to use his troll hammer, the next turn he reduces all damage by 30. So that includes damage from arts, that includes damage from attack actions, drop abilities, all that kind of stuff. It's all reduced by 30. And then if this creature does not perform an attack action during the combat round, so on the opposite hand, if they don't do it, increase this creature's attack damage by plus 30 against the primary target during the next combat round. So if you're attacking with him, he gets stronger. If you're not attacking with him, or he gets like thicker. If you're not attacking with him, his attacks get stronger. And so, which goes down to his activate ability, which is Troll Hammer. For a hefty cost of 4 flame mana, he does 80 damage to the primary target in kind of this cross pattern, as you see. So again, they're attacking creatures that are in the combat lane directly in front of them. It'll be the first creature that they see, and then in this cross pattern. So 80 damage to that primary target, and then 40 damage to all secondary targets in the opposite corners. And so he has a very heavy hitting attack, and if he doesn't attack in one combat round and he attacks the next combat round, that is going to be a 110 damage primary target attack. And so yeah, it can be devastating. It is a high cost to be able to use it, but it can clear battlefields. It's very, very strong, especially situationally as you use him. He is a defender type creature, meaning he can only move a 1 space each combat or each combat round, and so you got to be careful how you place him and how you use him, but he is thick with 2 C's. And he's going to be one of your kind of higher defense survivable creatures that you'll have in this goblin deck, as you'll see. Which brings us to our next creatures, which is the main infantry kind of line of attackers in your deck. And so these ones are going to be common creatures. They are goblin archers. And so goblins are well adept to seeing at night and in the dark, which lends them to being quite skilled archers, especially from closer ranges, but particularly in the dark. But they also, similar to the Calum creatures, as in our last video, they have preemptive strike 30. So it's a drop ability when you place them onto your battlefield in the unactivated or in the activated position from your hand. It activates preemptive strike, which is just choose one of your opponent's active creatures and deal it 30 damage. And so without any mana cost, it's pretty good. And they have a activate ability, which is just short bow for 40 damage for 1 for attack for 1 flame mana. You'll notice one of the trends in this kind of set compared to the Heroes of the West, where they have higher damage totals at a higher mana cost. The goblins, they kind of go against the flame mana element, where it's usually high attack with a ton of mana cost, but it's going to be kind of lower damage with lower mana cost, but they have a lot of things that buff their attacks to make them stronger. And so if you can have a lot of pieces in play and set up your goblins, they can do a ton of damage for pretty cheap. And so, yeah, that's going to be and they have 30 HP, so they are pretty squishy. You hide them definitely behind your trolls or your other defender type creatures in the line, but they're great for 1 mana to be able to put into like combat lanes that don't have creatures, and so you can, for very cheap, hit your opponent's life points. That's kind of how you're supposed to kind of play them. And then the preemptive strike does a decent amount of damage, but they promote into your goblin sharpshooter, which they have a drop ability called Deadly Aim. But first and foremost, they are attacker. They promote from this goblin archer, and they have 50 HP, so they're a little bit more survivable with the keywords Fell, Goblin, and Moles or Deep. And so choose one of your opponent's active creatures and deal it 40 damage. If your opponent has fewer active creatures on their battlefield than you, deal 60 damage instead. And so this really benefits you if you have a big setup of creatures on your battlefield. And so you want to get as many out as possible, as early on as possible, before you start playing them, because they can hit hard for 60 damage for just a drop without actually having to do attack actions and spending mana. So they're pretty good, and they have a attack action for 2 flame mana called Flaming Arrow, so 50 damage, single target attack, and the additional effect is flip a coin. On the result of a heads, the target gains the burn status ailment for D4 combat rounds. Essentially, you have a D4 in the game of Everlast, and you roll that, and the first turn counts on the turn that it was inflicted. So at the end of this combat round, that's 1 turn. And essentially, whenever a creature that is burned does any kind of activate ability or moves into the activated position, they receive 30 damage. And so it's pretty strong. They have to flip a coin on tails. It's received 30 damage, but it kind of disincentivizes attacking, as they will be being damaged as well. And so that's 50 damage for 2 flame mana. They're pretty good. And this is going to, as I had mentioned, this is going to be kind of your main attack line for your goblins. Which brings us to our actually next defender line of goblins, which are going to be your goblin guards. The goblin guards have the same amount of HP, so 30. They're quite weak, but they have the Fell, Goblin, Moles or Deep defender keywords, so they can be rotated into the to the guard position. But what makes them kind of defenders as a way is their trait. They have this trait called Goblin Horde, which is actually unique to them, which is when this creature's hit points drop to 0, flip a coin. On the result of heads, this creature is not slain and recovers hit points equal to its maximum hit point total. So that could be 30. There are possibilities for their max HP to increase to whether it's a gear or maybe some synergies with other cards that increase their maximum hit point total. They heal all the way to the max amount when they hit 0. And so it's kind of the way in this game without just having a bunch of bodies, since everybody is limited to 8 creature cards on their battlefield at a time. It's the way to be able to make it seem like the hordes are endless. Once they hit 0, they can recover. They have the 50-50 shot of recovering and not getting slain. And then for a 2 mana, they have a single target attack action that just does 30 damage. So again, they poke, and they are kind of thick. If you're lucky, they're thick. And they actually promote into your Goblin Warriors, which actually have the same trait. And so they have the 60 hit point total, which is double the amount of HP as the Goblin Guards. And so this is kind of one of your primary examples of creatures that you absolutely want to promote. There is no downside to promoting them, as they have the same traits and they have pretty much the same attack action, single target attack action, that instead of Spear for 30, it's Goblin Blade for 40. And so they're just bigger and thicker with the same chances of survivability than your Goblin Guards. So you want to get your Goblin Warriors out as quickly as possible. Goblin Guards are basically just there until they're promoted. So if it were up to me, I would definitely have a 3/3 line of them in your goblin decks. You do not want to waste that because goblins are pretty squishy. But our next creature is a primary creature called a Goblin Mongrel. They're interesting because they are an attacker type creature with the Fell, Goblin, Moles, or Deep keywords. 60 hit points, but they are a primary type creature, and they have drop abilities called Unbridled Rage. They do damage to their own creatures, essentially, is what ends up happening. But essentially, when you place this creature onto your battlefield, deal 30 damage to all of your active creatures. So whether that's goblins or whatever, it's just every creature that you have active on your battlefield. And then deal 50 damage to one of your opponent's creature for each of your creatures slain by this drop ability. So you can get rid of a bunch of the goblins that are on your battlefield. And if you do so and you slay them, with 30 damage, you could deal insane amounts of damage. So like 50 times the amount of goblins that are slain to one of your opponent's creatures. That's at choice. And so this guy can deal insane damage on drop. He is a you can only have one of them on your battlefield at a time, so you can't just spam the heck out of him. But he's one of those good creatures that he does some heavy damage to you, but he's good at clearing out some big heavy threats on your opponent's battlefield. He has as an attacker type, he has an attack action for 3 basically flame mana called Slaver's Chain. And it is 60 damage to the primary target plus 30 damage to a secondary creature. So 60 to the main target, 30 damage. This will be FAQ'd here. The 60 damage is the primary, and then when the unlimited set does get released, this will be changed to 60. Additional effects: search your deck for one creature with the troll keyword and add it to your hand. Shuffle your deck. So they pair very well with cave trolls. So he helps you to get that, or if other trolls get released in future sets, or if you want multi-element sets, there's other trolls in the sets. You can kind of mix and match them, as it were, but you can search for any creature with the troll keyword, shuffle your deck, and add it to your hand. So that could be pretty strong as well, kind of for some deck manipulation. But he's got 60 HP, all that kind of stuff. So he's an attacker, and he's not a captain, so he doesn't count towards your captain limit. Our next creature is going to be the main support line of the goblins, and it is the Goblin Shaman. They have 30 hit points. They are a support creature, meaning you can rotate them into the activated position in order to generate mana, but they do not have any drop abilities or traits, which you might be like, wow, that's really weak. But they do have a support ability called Enrage, which essentially what that does is choose one of your active creatures as the target of the support action until the end of the combat round. Select one of the creature's attack actions and deal an additional 30 damage to the primary target of the creature. So they buff your attacks, essentially. So your 30 spear attack from your Goblin Guard goes up to 60, or your 40 goes up to 70. And so for very cheap mana costs, they can really buff the attacks of your goblins. So that's where they really excel. And also for your mana generation, they're going to be your primary source of mana generation in a goblin deck. They promote into your Goblin Pyromancer, which actually does give you a drop ability, which is called Wild Blaze. They have 40 HP, so 10 more than their primary versions. They are supports with the Fell, Goblin, Moles, or Deep. Their Wildfire drop ability, so when you play them onto your battlefield from your hand, add D4 flame mana to your mana pool instead of 1. And so you have the chance to gain an additional flame mana, but you can gain up to 4 mana. So they're really good at padding at least they have a very high chance of padding your mana pool with a lot of mana. So yeah, definitely a big chunk of mana generation is promoting, which with some of the cards that you've seen, by either discarding or picking them up and shuffling them into your deck, you can spam a lot of mana generation between playing just the 2 of these from your hand onto your battlefield. And then they have the same Enrage ability. And so they can increase attacks against primary target creature by plus 30. So pretty good, pretty strong. Which brings us to our next creature, which is a support, which is called the Goblin War Drummers. So they have 90 hit points, as shown. Basically, it's 3 goblins with 30 hit points each. But yeah, they have a total of 90 hit points. And they have the Fell, Goblin, Mulzor Deep keywords. Their trait is War Drums. And so while they're active on the battlefield, all of your active creatures with the Goblin keyword may move 1 additional space on your turn during the movement phase. So it makes all of your creatures, your attacker types, be able to move 3 spaces per combat round, and then your other support and defender can move 2. And so they allow for a lot of movement to fill some gaps, to be able to get some cheap shots in against your opponent's life points, which is really nice. And then they have, for an activate ability, Forward March, if you, in lieu of activating for mana for a turn. Which is based on this creature's remaining hit points, use the following actions. If they have 50 or more hit points, flip 3 coins. For each result of heads, search your discard pile for a creature with the Goblin keyword and add it to your hand. And then if they have 40 or less, it's just a lesser version of this, which is flip 1 coin on the result of a heads, search your discard pile for a creature with the Goblin keyword and add it to your hand. And so the more HP that they have, the more effective this is, and it's really good for if you're running low on your cheap bodies of goblins. It's a way to get them back into your hand from your discard. So they're pretty much your basically saving you from running out of creatures in your deck. So they're very strong. And again, you can only have 1 of them on your battlefield per turn at a time. But yeah, they're pretty good and pretty thick too. Which brings us to our first kind of villainous creature of this set, which is Grusnak, the Goblin Champion. He is going to be an evil creature that is going to kind of harass your party during the actual campaign, and one of the main goblin villains that you will come across during the basically the first sets that are coming out for the Everlast role-playing game. And he has the captain, so he does fill one of those 3 captain positions, Fell and Goblin and Mulzor Deep keywords, and he has 70 base hit points, so he's a little bit thicker to begin with, and he is an attacker type creature. He has the trait Fell Tactics, so whenever one of your creatures other than this card with the Goblin keyword uses an attack action, deal an additional 20 damage to the target. So he additionally increases damage of your goblins. So if you can just get a bunch of these kind of creatures with the traits that synergize your goblins will go from low cost to low damage dealing to low cost high damage dealing, which is as long as you have the key pieces in place, you'll slowly begin to steamroll kind of as the later game comes into play. And then he has his attack Fell Blade for 80 damage. It's just a single target attack for 3 flame mana. Its additional effect, remove the slain creature from the game. And so as opposed to the creature going to your opponent's discard pile, it's just removed from the game. So yeah, quite strong. Very good. And he promotes into the first EX of them, which is a Grusnak Goblin Champion EX, which is an exalted creature. When you do slay exalted creatures, you do receive 1 point of damage to your life point total. And so you got to be careful how you use them. He has 110 hit points, and he has a trait called Fell Tactics, which is the exact same thing as his previous. So he still buffs by 20 all of your goblins. Which is cool. So as long as you can basically use him in his promoted form the same as you use him, he's just truly a better upgraded version of Grusnak. So you don't lose out on anything by promoting him. And then he has Fell Blade, same thing. It's just a stronger version of the attack. Instead of a base 80, it's a base 100, and then remove the slain creature from the game. For a 3 flame mana, and then he has his EX activate, which means once you've used this once, you can no longer use it on this creature for the remainder of the game. And so he has for 2 mana Hero Slayer, which is slay one of your opponent's active creatures with the hero keyword. And so you see villain here. The good creatures in Heroes, or basically in the Heroes of the West set or any of the other future expansions, EX creatures will have the hero keyword. And this is, no matter what their HP is, you just slay them for 2 mana. So he can essentially, even if you have a bunch of buffs on one of the creatures that they have like a 200 HP or something crazy, you could just take it off and then also receive it's basically a free life point that you can take from your opponent once per game, which is pretty good. And that brings us to our next, basically next and last captain creature of this set, of the, well, not of the set, but of the flame elements, which is Nuzgraw, the king of Molzor Deep. So he is the king of the goblins under Crown Heights, which is the mountain, but in deep down in the Subterran. He has the Captain Fell Goblin and Molzor Deep keywords. He's a defender type creature, and he has 80 HP to start. He has a drop ability called Heavy Impact, which is when you play him onto your battlefield from your hand, choose 2 of your opponent's active creatures and rotate them into the activated position, which is really great, especially if you go first and they haven't done anything, whether it's attack actions preventing them from making attacks during the attack phase, or it doesn't do damage, but it prevents them from doing any actions, whether it's generating mana or anything like that. And so, yeah, he's a big disruptor if you just drop him down onto your battlefield. And then he also has an attack action called Crushing Axe, which is for 3 mana. It targets 3 creatures in a line, the primary creature being in the middle, and then the 2 kind of flanking to the left or right. The primary creature receives 60 damage, and the secondary creatures each receive 30 damage. The additional effect is each target creature must move backwards 1 space if it is able to do so. So it basically just moves everything back from basically the front 2 lines to as close to the back row as possible, which is cool. So it has a kind of movement and manipulation that way. So yeah, he's definitely reliable, and he's going to be thick. Some creature to hide some of your weaker goblins behind. And he promotes into Nuzgraw, the King of Molzor Deep EX. So he's an EX creature, so he follows all the same rules. He has 130 hit points for his maximum hit points, and he is a defender type creature, except now he has the villain keyword. So the difference between villain and captain is villain takes up one of those captain spots because it has the captain keyword, but you can only have 1 villain creature on your battlefield at any given time. So if you have Nuzgraw on your battlefield, you can't have Grusnag EX on your battlefield, but you can have the regular Grusnag, or if you have Grusnag EX, you can have regular Nuzgraw on your battlefield at a given time. He has the trait Gluttonous Appetite. So once per combat round during your turn in the attack phase, randomly discard 1 card from your hand. If you do, this creature heals 40 hit points. And so he's got some survivability. So if he's getting down kind of in HP, once per turn, you can discard a card from your hand and heal, which is awesome. 40 hit points is a decent amount. A lot of creatures, you'll notice, especially kind of some of the lower ranked creatures, will do about 40 damage. So he can pretty much negate an attack or heal up from heavy damage that he has received. He has for his attack action the Crushing Axe, so similar. It does the same exact effect as his normal card, except everything is just increased by 10 HP. So instead of 60 to the primary, it's 70 to the primary. Instead of 30 to the secondaries, it's 40 to the secondaries. So a little bit stronger. And then he has his EX Activate, which is the Will of the Goblin King for 1 flame mana. Again, it's an EX Activate, so you can only use it once per game. It's search your deck for up to 4 primary type creatures with the Molzor Deep keyword and play them onto your battlefield in the unactivated position. So he is great for early game, late game setup, where if you're struggling on battlefield, you get primary type creatures and plop them onto your battlefield, which is really, really nice. Yeah, and it's only for 1 flame mana too, so you can do that very cheap. And so he's great at setting up to getting kind of the goblin hordes kind of abilities going. And that is a support action, so that's done during the movement phase. So that's Nuzgraw. And now we're moving into the beast creatures of this element, which are the wolves. And so first and foremost, you have your riding wolf. And this is actually the first mount of both sets, the Heroes of the West and the Razing of Helix, that we'll be going over. And so I'll go over the rules of that as we get to it. But you have your riding wolf. And so you can have up to 3 of them. He is a support creature with 50 hit points, and he has the Beast, Wolf, and Mount keywords. He has the trait Mountable Fell, which essentially what that is a mountable creature. You can place any creature with the Fell keyword on top of him, almost as if you are promoting. It's not quite like a promotion, but you can put primary type creatures on top of them with the fel keyword. But essentially what it says is you can play a primary type creature with the fel keyword on top of this creature to create a paired creature. So it's not a promoted, it's a paired creature. When paired, the creature adopts the stats and abilities of the topmost creature card. So it's no longer the Riding Wolf's stat block, but the topmost creature card additionally gains the charge stat ailment, or the charge ability, which allows them to move one additional space during the movement phase, which is nice. And then, so some of your creatures, depending on how you're set up, you could potentially move 4 spaces per combat round. They gain an additional 20 hit points to their maximum hit point total. So let's just say you have Mr. King here on top of a Riding Wolf. He's a fel creature, so he has the ability to do so. He'll have 150 hit points and the charge trait as well, just by being on top of this creature. And this pairing cannot be separated and in any way, essentially. So it basically counts as part of the card at that point. It's not like an attached card. And both cards are discarded if the paired creature is slain. So, yeah. Basically, he counts as a support type creature until he is mounted, and then it's just he buffs whatever is mounted on top of him. And then he has a support ability, Calling Howl, for 1 flame mana. Search your deck for a primary type creature with the fel keyword and place it on top of this card as a paired creature. So, like, pretty much from turn 2 for 1 mana, you can guarantee a goblin or orc for future kind of elements can go on top of them, and you can start creating wolf riders for your goblins and orcs, which is very nice. And then our next creature, which is kind of our wolves. Continuing on with the wolves, it's our wild wolf. They have 50. They're attacker type creature. They have 50 hit points. They have the beast and wolf keywords. They have a trait called Feral Instinct. So this creature's attack actions gain an additional 10 damage for each active creature on your battlefield, more than the number of active creatures on your opponent's battlefield. So if you have 4 creatures and your opponent has 3, its primary attack does plus 10 damage. If you have 4 and they have 2, plus 20 damage, etc. So basically, you want to make sure your opponents are low as far as the amount of creatures on their battlefield, and you have a lot of creatures, and then your wild wolves will do a lot more damage with their Feral Instinct trait. And then they have just a basic attack, which is Bite, which is just 50 damage to 1 target creature. So, yeah, pretty cool. They're decently strong, but they can be promoted into the Fel Wolf. So they are a improved version of them, which has 70 HP. They have the same keywords. They're still attackers. They gain the preemptive strike drop ability, so they lose their Feral Instinct trait, gain preemptive strike. So when you basically promote them onto this creature, 50 damage to any one of your opponent's active creatures, and they gain the attack Savage Bite, which is for 3 flame mana, 70 damage, and the additional effect is move the target forward 1 space diagonally into an unoccupied space. So you can choose either the right or left, and this is great for clearing up space for creatures behind them to be able to attack through to your opponent's life points. And so he has a higher base attack, and then also the ability to move where the wolf, maybe the wild wolf, has a higher damage potential, but they can only target 1 creature. There's no additional effects. But that is going to do it for our overlook of the Razing of Helix flame cards. If you guys have any questions, always make sure to check out our Discord, our website, and that's where we're going to have set lists, all that kind of stuff, so you can kind of look at this again. Look forward to the release in August of the Unlimited if you did not purchase the Kickstarters, but if you did purchase on our Kickstarter, you will get the first edition of these cards. And always check out our FAQs if you have any question as well. I'm Kyle, and I will see you all for the next one. I will make sure we're going to go ahead and move into the flame, or not, moving from the flame to the frost type element creatures, which are going to be for the Heroes of the West. That's going to be the Kingdom of Helix, so the City of Helix, and the royal family there, and the Orcs of Nazragod, which are kind of the primary set that the Razing of Helix is around. But they are the frost type creatures. May Alamnia guide you, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye, everybody.